Okay, time to talk more about my infamous 1-year-old hair loss theory. It's infamous. I have created a theory that whatever your hairline looked like at age 1, exactly 1, not 1.5, not 6 months, but 1 year old, that is a projection of what your hair will look like at age 35. Not everybody buys into this. I buy into it. It absolutely is spot on for me. I've got 2 different videos I've made on this channel about it. And I saw some comments from somebody who was asking about that. On one thing he says, so what if you were born with a lot of hair? And then, well, he asked on 2 different videos the same question. What if you were born with a lot of hair? Here's my answer. According to my theory, which I have crafted and created, if you were born with a bunch of hair, doesn't mean anything. Some babies are born completely bald, some are born not. I'm thinking about my son when he was born. His hairline was like this. And based on what I can see on his 1-year-old photo, he's gonna pretty much have the exact same kind of hair as me. Just like I pretty much have the same kind of hair as my dad. What hair you're born with is irrelevant. Some babies are just born with, because even the first coat of hair just kind of falls out after a few weeks anyway, is how it works. I've seen that with both of my kids now. So it's irrelevant. What actually serves as a projection of a boy's hairline once he grows up and becomes mid-30s, 35, is age 1. Now, where did I come up with this? Keep in mind, you can do this the same thing with your height. Whatever height the child is at age 2 years old, you double that. And that's the right proportions for what they'll be as an adult. It worked for me to the inch. For my sister, even for my son, he's going to be an inch shorter than me. It totally adds up. So I thought there's got to be other little patterns and secret anomalies here that we can figure out. And I figured it out with hair loss. It totally makes sense. Now, final thing though, and this is the most important thing, the 80-20 rule. I believe this theory is only valid 80% of the time, meaning 20% of the time it's not. So if people want to give me exceptions, then I'm simply going to say, yep, you're that 20% I already mentioned in my video. Remember that? It's accurate 80% of the time. 20% of the time we can find exceptions to the rule. Just like with my beard theory, if you were able to grow a full beard by the time you graduated high school, you're more likely to be losing your hair earlier on in life. However, we can find 20% of the population that can serve as exceptions to that. And we're not going to focus on the exception to the rule. We focus on the 80%. The 80%. So, who am I? I'm just a guy with a camera on the internet. I'm not a professional. I'm nobody special. But I do have 2,300 subscribers, so either they're crazy, or I'm crazy, or both crazy, or at least we're all just a little bit open-minded to a theory that no one has ever invented or ever talked about until I came around with this channel. So, but as far as the specific question, if you were born with a lot of hair, does that imply you'll get to keep more hair as an adult? I'd say it has absolutely nothing to do with anything. Not until you can show me a picture of your 1-year-old photo. And everyone's got a photo of themselves at 1 year old. It's one of those years that your mom, she took your picture. Find the picture, look at your hairline. There's you at age 35. At least 80% of the people who do that, that'll be the case. And I've made videos on that myself if you want to check those out. One's called Am I Balding? Try this out, the 1-year-old photo test. And you can definitely check that out there and see that. And then there's another one I made, and it was called Best Way to Predict Hair Loss. So if you were to check out either of those, yeah, Best Way to Predict Hair Loss, 1-year-old photo. So anyway, if you want to check that out, do it. I think it's relevant. I think it's worth doing. And again, no one can say, no, Nick, you're wrong, because I've already put the disclaimer. 80-20 rule. And I think that's a rule with most things in life. Things that work for certain people, they probably work for 80% of the population. And the other 20% is the exception to the rule. And I think those of us who understand that are probably more successful in life, because we can understand a guiding pattern in life, but we're not dictated by that. We can be open-minded to think, this will probably work. It usually works. Let's see if it does. But then when it doesn't work, we don't get bent out of shape. We're like, okay, well, I'm the exception to the rule. I'm not the exception to the rule though on this. I'm the 80% on both of my theories, on both hair loss being predicted at age by your 1-year-old photo and being able to grow a beard by age. So, final plea with you: do not tell me a story about how you're the exception to the rule. Don't tell me about your uncle. Don't talk about famous people. I don't care. I don't care about the 20%. My theory means that most of the time this is true, 80%. And if you don't get that, and you still put a comment talking about an exception to the rule and how my theory is bogus, then you miss part of the theory. The theory is built into the fact that it's only accurate 80% of the time. So to deny that part, but only to keep the one part, it's not my theory. Final time, let me say my theory. My theory is that 80% of the time, if you look at your hairline at age 1, that's a projection of your hairline at age 35. 80% of the time for 80% of the population. And also, 80% of the time, if you can grow a full beard by the time you're out of high school, you're the guy that's going to have the hairline. You're going to be losing your hair sooner than most people. 80% of the time, 80% of you. Have I been clear about that? 80%, 80%, 80%, 80%, 80%, 80%, 80%, 80%, 80%.